Oh man, oh man, oh man, I have been waiting for this. So, what we have done a few days ago was pointing out this abomination, the fight of Zskarn. Now, almost as if Blizzard listened to me the day after they announced they were going to change the fight because of how problematic it was, because of how many mechanics of the fight could be cheesed, could be essentially ignored. Now, the reason why I waited about 4 days before actually following up on these news is that it was the weekend, is that it was Friday when it was announced they were going to change this, and not many guilds were going to raid on Friday and Saturday. So now, by Tuesday, by the end of this week, we had plenty of guilds, raiding on Sunday and Monday and now Tuesday. So we can start seeing the impact of what these changes did. Because if you look at this, the same thing we talked about the last time we checked Zskarn, is that after the first 40 to 50 guilds, taking almost 10 days to get 40 to 50 kills, in the following 3 or so days we had something like 180 kills. So the disparity was massive. Suddenly there was a massive burst of kills of Zskarn when it was supposed to be quite the challenging boss, right? What is going on? How is the boss dying so easily? The answer was guilds were copying this cheese strategy where you get to ignore many of the mechanics of the boss. Then Blizzard comes out with the changes. And you can actually pinpoint in time the moment these changes break the hearts of the guilds progressing on Zskarn. Because you have this hilarious gap from the last kill pre-fix of Zskarn to the first kill after the fix of Zskarn. What's worse is that even after the first kill, there has only been a handful of new Zskarn kills after the changes. Now, if we were going by the same kill speed of Zskarn while he was, let's just say, cheesable, in these last 4 days we should have been able to see somewhere in the realm of 100 new kills of Zskarn. Instead, we are at what? 5, 6, 7 kills instead of 100? I am not too good at maths, but that number is much lower than it should be. So what's going on? What did Blizzard change to make this fight that much worse? Because when you start and look at the changes, initially they sound amazing. First of all, Zskarn has 15% less HP. Actually, Blizzard was even being too light on that change, because a few hours later they come out and say, no, it's actually an extra 10% less. So it's 15 plus 10, it's 25% less HP on this boss. So you already start thinking, okay, one of the strats, the initial strats to bring him to the safe spot, started by bringing the boss to the safe spot at 30 to 40% HP. So cutting his health by 25% is already a great start towards being able to do the boss now without having to rely too much on that safe spot. And then it gets even better. Dragonfire Golem's health has been reduced by 15%, so you have to spend even less damage on the golem. You can pick up the items more quickly, you can prevent the golems from opening up and enabling more traps, and you can spend more time doing damage to the boss. That's also a good change. Further positive nerfs to the fight were that now the shrapnel bombs being spawned every 30 seconds by the boss were 3 instead of 4. So now it is also easier to soak up these bombs before they explode and kill the raid. However, the positive changes stop here, because the following 3 changes are what is currently making Zskarn a much more of a headache to go through. Change number 1, this is the more expected, what I called was going to happen in the video about Zskarn, which is the Berserk. I said that the main reason why this whole safe spot strategy, this whole bench DPS players and bring extra tanks and bring extra healers is possible, it's only because you have no Berserk. It's only because the boss is not going to eventually kill you after it reaches a certain point. 9 minutes in, or 10 minutes in, or 11 minutes in, the entire room goes on fire and you will die or something like that. Zskarn did not have a Berserk, an Enrage timer. And then this fix now gives Zskarn an Enrage timer, so now you can no longer basically fight endlessly this boss. That's the first of the changes, but still though, with the boss having 25% less HP, the golems having 15% less HP, you can still reliably do the current strat of bringing the boss down to 40-ish%, 30-ish%, and then go to your safe spot. That should still be doable just fine, even with this berserk timer. You can still afford to bring an extra healer, for example, and even an extra tank without having to worry about this berserk timer. However, what you will have to worry about with this change is that number one, we have now adjusted the position of Dragonfire traps.
No, 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 no.
Now, what this means, it's not really clear from the text. You actually have to go in-game and realize what Blizzard means with this. What they mean with this is Blizzard essentially putting mini traps, tiny, cute, little extra traps in the safe spot positions. As you can see, the room has those points to the corners where you can actually tuck yourself in and avoid the fire. Now, with this change, you will have traps in there, making it impossible for you to just chill in that corner. Okay, damn, now things are a little bit more complicated. Now, yes, the boss has 25% less health, but now we can't use the safe spot anymore. So that starts to get a little bit more complicated to deal with this boss, but you aren't even done thinking about what you should do to deal with this boss without the safe spot. That there is another change which makes the fight also more difficult. This change is that now Zskarn is no longer going to activate the tactical destruction big huge AoE based on his location. Now, I gave you a very pretty, clean and comprehensive picture on what the strategy was for tactical destruction, because tactical destruction lights up the dragon heads around the room, making the AoE happen. That only happened based on where Zskarn was, so because the raid was tucked in the safe spot, every time the boss was reaching 100 energy and about to cast this AoE, the tank was going to drag the boss in the opposite side of the room, so that the AoE would be cast in that empty side of the room and you did not have to move from the safe spot. What this change does is that now the tactical destruction cast by Zskarn is going to be targeted at the side of the room with the most amount of players currently in. So as if the safe spot strategy wasn't already dead because Blizzard put another mini trap on top of the safe spot, now it's even deader because now you can't chill in the safe spot anymore. Now you actually have to move away, or at the very least you have to bait the tactical destruction away. But to be able to do that, you still need to have cleared traps. You still need to have some empty room, right? Some road to travel without having to step on traps, because stepping on traps is already deadly on tanks to begin with. DPS and healers cannot afford to just step on traps and take multiple stacks of the fire dot that the traps leave behind. So now all of these changes together have turned this boss essentially into a much harder boss than it was before. We have already seen the amount of kills Zskarn has gone through after the change. It's basically less than 10 when it was supposed to be 100 given the amount of time that passed. It also might have to do with the fact that all of the best guilds are already past Zskarn. So if you were looking at some top guilds, some best players dealing with the fight or creating the strategy, creating the way to deal with the fight, you don't see it. You can't see it because all of the best guilds with all of the best players are already past Zskarn. So you have to rely on the guilds in the 250 to 400 world rank range to come up with something to deal with what is basically a new boss. And so far the results have been quite poor. Guilds seem to be struggling a lot trying to find out a new strategy which does not include at any point the safe spot. So I thought it was quite funny, I thought it was quite hilarious that we made a video about the worst boss, the worst design boss of Blizzard in these past few years, simply because of how many mechanics you could ignore. The knockback he does, the blast wave he does, can be ignored because you're all stuck in a corner against the wall, so you're getting knocked back nowhere. The bombs could be ignored if you properly did the strategy of leaving only one trap disabled, so the boss has only one place to spawn the traps, so he wouldn't spawn the trap for some reason. That could also be cheesed. You could also cheese the tactical destruction by having the tank run out inside the fire traps and make the boss cast tactical destruction far away, as well as cheesing the whole ad management plus room management because of you basically ignoring traps and ignoring ads by tucking yourself into a safe spot. So that was already a terrible boss overall because of how many things went wrong with the mechanics, and somehow Blizzard managed to put in some changes to make the boss somehow even harder to deal with than before. As I said, perhaps the boss might seem harder than it actually is because all of the best guilds, all of the top guilds with the top players have already killed Zskarn. Now it's only about re-clearing Zskarn for some of those guilds, for example, so it might be that we don't just see the best way to deal with this new version of Zskarn yet, but the result for now has been quite painful for all of the guilds that basically all of the guilds that got to progress to Zskarn just a couple of days too late. You know, a couple of days too late to be able to use the cheese strategy. So now they have been somewhat punished by the fact that they have to learn a different type of boss than all of the guilds prior to them had to do. They all did it with the cheese. You finally get to Zskarn, you are ready to use the cheese, and then you read the hotfix from Blizzard, and now you have to think about something completely different to go through this boss. So quite a poor decision overall from Blizzard, especially to fix, because remember, this raid has been going quite quickly, but remember that this hotfix came in halfway through the 3rd week of the season. Okay, this is not some massive nerfs 1, 2, or 3 months into the season. This is 2.5 weeks into the season where this boss was changed significantly. So it is definitely quite surprising to see such a massive change so early. Even if we pointed out how many things could be cheesed on this boss and how badly it ended up being designed, it's still quite surprising to see this amount of heavy changes to how the boss fundamentally works. So to close with the neighbor's barking dog in the background, I have to say that I'm sorry for all of the guilds who got here a little bit too late and will have to probably waste a few more wipes than they would have on this boss. I think it was pretty bad timing on Blizzard's end when it came to fixing some of the issues that this boss had. So, with this clownage of Zskarn out of the way, we are now leaving each other on this Tuesday, reset day for NA, and soon to be reset day in EU as well. We are starting our goodbyes by thanking, of course, the barking dog in the background, as well as all of the Patreon supporters. You can still support completely for free, liking and commenting down below, as well as subscribing to the channel itself, together with following me over on Twitter, as well as following me over on my stream on Twitch. So, with these things out of the way, thank you guys again for watching. See you guys soon, and in the meantime, I wonder what is it barking about? Let me see. I think he's just barking at a tree. Typical dog behavior.